My name is Mateo Garcia, and these past 10 weeks I've worked with Canton Township and Plymouth Canton Community Schools on envisioning a path toward waste reduction both in Plymouth Canton as well as in Michigan schools. And so, first brief introduction about the team. My name is Mateo. I'm a master's student at the School for Environment and Sustainability. We worked with Danielle Todd from Make Food Not Waste, Kayla McDaniels, who's the Food Procurement Director at Plymouth Canton Community Schools, and Zach Mitchell's planner from Canton Township. And so we start with the problem, food waste. The largest stream by weight in Michigan, a large producer of methane emissions, and in Southeast Michigan specifically, there's become a problem of a significant need to increase landfill lifespan. In Canton Township itself, we are seeing this limited space in Woodland Meadows landfill. The township has an end of life on their existing contract, and so looming in the future is potentially higher fees for residents for their municipal waste pickup. But the township is addressing this, and they've laid the groundwork by implementing a residential compost drop-off at a variety of sites around the town. But for this fellowship, we decided to partner with Plymouth Canton Community Schools and teach them young. Schools provide a very interesting space for intervention because it allows not only for young people to learn new habits and take them back home, but also within the mission of the school, creating an engaged citizen who is able to deal with the real life problems that the township has to deal with, and then implementing those things into a sense of community involvement for the students. And so we arrived at a couple of goals for this 10-week fellowship. First, identifying strategies for Plymouth Canton that could effectively be carried out within the constraints that the school faces. And then secondly, creating a resource documenting not only existing literature, but our experiences within these 10 weeks for implementing food waste reduction within schools. And so this meant a lot of things. This meant assessing resources both online and with state leaders. We actually got our boots on the ground and performed a waste audit in Bentley Elementary, and then provided some reduction solutions for the school district, as well as starting a larger engagement with other people within the district. And within the first couple of weeks, because school ended pretty quickly, we ended up doing a waste audit at Bentley Elementary. It's a elementary school, K through 5. It's got about 480 students. And we basically dug through the trash for a couple of days. We took a few trash bags out, got a representative sample, and we also took home some cereal as we figured out how much food waste is the elementary school actually throwing out. And we got some pretty interesting results. We did a qualitative survey for the students, and we found that they wanted a longer lunchtime in order to eat their food. Based on this very limited 2-day sample, we found that between 6 and 12 tons of food waste per year might be thrown out. But we also found some pretty cool wins that the school system was already doing. The procurement department had a pretty good grasp on how many meals they had to order. They had excellent refrigeration technology, so a lot of stuff that was prepared but not taken was able to be refrigerated and served at a later date. And so after we did this waste audit, we said, what will the end products be? One of them being a waste reduction guide that's generalized for townships or cities across Michigan, and then the waste audit report to provide specific recommendations for Bentley Elementary School. And so a little sneak peek of what that audit report looks like, mapping the paths that different organic waste takes throughout the lunchroom to identify different strategies for food waste reduction and trying to pinpoint the most efficient solutions. And so what did this look like at Bentley Elementary? It meant taking easy wins. Some schools across Plymouth Canton already have things like a share table which is basically a place for students to put an orange or an apple that they're not going to eat, and just put it on the table, and then students will know, yes, I can take this. At Bentley Elementary School, they eat their breakfast in the classroom. So how do we inform teachers on how to run their own little shared table in the classroom so kids don't have to throw out their apple slices? And then focusing on the district as a whole, Canton Township already has agreements for food waste hauling with the nonprofit group My Green Michigan. And potentially in the future, as food waste reduction builds out across the district, they can utilize that at a lower cost. And then utilizing existing connections, like with nonprofit groups like Make Food Not Waste, who is already dealing in the food waste space in Southeast Michigan. Schools are limited by a lack of support and a lack of funding. So any help, even if it's just having someone provide research that they looked at and solutions to the table, could help catalyze some movement. And using the generalized guide, there are a variety of things that people can look for, but it's made for anybody who would want to try and do this at their own school. So it could be administration, but it can also be a local champion whose son goes to the elementary school and they want to do a program at their school. But it provides resources on how to not just make short-term change, but if somebody wanted to do this, how do we make change that will last beyond a certain student or parent's lifetime within the district? And so there's existing resources from EGLE, from the USDA, from the EPA, on things like conducting waste audits, stakeholder engagement, and specific strategies. But we also included a case study from our 10 weeks at Bentley. What went well with the audit? What would we do better? Specific SOP guidelines for a shared table. How does this knowledge get carried out throughout the district? How do you train staff? Developing the PD day. And we also included the waste audit report for people to, when they do their own thing, yes, you have this data, but how do you make actionable change with that data? Some pictures, right? So we present, what should you be looking at in a food waste audit? The total mass, what types, or is it organic waste or plastic waste? Familiarizing people who want to make change with the waste reduction hierarchy so they can actually do the most efficient actions possible. And so after this 10 weeks, we look at what are the next steps for P-CCS. We began to do some stakeholder outreach, right? Assessing the capacity for teachers and administrators within districts. Like, are we able to build up this network of food waste champions and really have some quick rollout of a program? Or is this going to be something that takes a longer time, maybe up to 10 years, to really implement it throughout the district? And that's something that the district is currently working on as we sent out a survey recently. And then developing faculty working groups regarding curriculum development or training students or even just purchasing things like food waste bins. And finally, there's also a need to train not just students, but teachers, administrators, kitchen staff, and janitors about developing the professional skills needed for food waste management. Like, what do I compost? Or what is compostable? And the next steps, looking statewide, if there's one thing that I've learned in these past 10 weeks is that schools are incredibly strapped for resources, both in time, in funding, and in personnel. And so the ability to utilize existing partnerships, not only with local nonprofits like Make Food Not Waste, not only with My Green Michigan, but doing things like working with Canton Township and getting a fellow who can actually spend their time on this, is very important for moving things forward within the school system ecosystem. This might seem obvious, but just prioritizing education when local municipalities are figuring out their budget, I think working with schools can catalyze social change faster than perhaps economic change, but investing within a school can bridge that gap. And then establishing positions within districts for sustainability, even if it's not a full-time gig, just having someone official who can be there and maybe gets a little compensation to field requests from people like parents who want to make change, but they don't really understand how they can dig their way into the bureaucratic system that is the school system.